Hi everyone, and welcome to the March edition of the Good Brothers Tasting Club. For those who are new to the Tasting Club, I'm Graeme Sutherland, and I'm the owner at Good Brothers Wine Bar in Edinburgh. Welcome along. Today we are in for yet another treat. The first two tasting clubs of this year, we have gone to Spain and we have gone to West Coast USA. Now we are going Southern Hemisphere. We are heading down to South Africa, and we are going to try 4 absolutely cracking wines. So before we get started, a little bit about South Africa and what's going on there at the moment. You may well have seen in the news of late that throughout the pandemic, throughout the lockdown in South Africa, that alcohol has actually been banned. The sale of and the consumption of has been banned completely throughout the country. And for some period as well, exports have been hugely dented. Real shame. South Africa is a fantastic region, which is coming out of all the troubles of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, really starting to re-engage with the local population, bringing people into the fold, sharing ownership of vineyards. Friends like Ken Forrester down there, who I know quite well, really reinvesting in local quality, in local environment, in local talent, and just making farms moving so far away from the old white farmer rule to a really inclusive culture. There's also a really hotbed for some fantastic young producers making brilliant wines, of which we're going to look at quite a few today. I'm really excited about this. Actually, this is a really fun tasting, and fun is the real word here. So South Africa, we all know South Africa for Stellenbosch, I think, is probably the word that comes to our lips. First of all, Stellenbosch, Chenin Blanc, Pinotage, and the grape varieties. However, South Africa is so much more than just these two grapes in that one region. Regions-wise, you have places like Franschhoek, you've got the Western Cape, you've got Paarl, Robertson, you've got some lovely, cooler, high-altitude vineyards inland where it is baking hot, but gets lovely cool in the evening. You've got coastal vineyards which get a fantastic coastal influence of the Pacific Oceans and the Atlantic Oceans, which cool down and give all this lovely acidity. It's a really beautifully varied and mixed country, and it's not just about Pinotage and about Chenin Blanc. There are Chardonnays, there are Sauvignon Blancs, there are Pinot Noirs, there are Cab Francs, Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre, a whole spectrum. And again, coming out of the 80s, 90s, where most of it was controlled by big state monopolies, now we have owner-operators making crackingly good wines, and importantly, working organically, biodynamically, minimal intervention, so working in a very holistic manner, which is what we love. But anyway, before we get bored with my voice, I'll get cracking on. 4 wines again to taste this month, 2 whites, 2 reds. We're going to start with actually a wine which is made by a friend of mine, and it is made by Thomas Webb from the Thalima estate, but actually this is their Sutherland Chardonnay. No link to me whatsoever, but this is the Sutherland Chardonnay from the Thalima Wines estate. Now, Thalima is an iconic wine in South Africa. Their Cabernets and their Merlots, they are often regarded as one of the top brands, one of the top wines of the country. Now, they're all based up in Stellenbosch, so quite hot. It gets nice, big, powerful wines. The Webbs decided a while back to actually try and encapsulate some of the differences that South Africa can produce. And they took on a parcel of land down in Elgin. So this is down in the Western Cape. It's much more coastal than Stellenbosch. So what does that mean for winemaking? Basically, the minute you start influencing or bringing in the coastal effect, that cooling winds off the ocean, you get a tempering of the heat, which means, yes, we still get lovely ripeness in the grapes, so more sugars, so potential alcohol being higher, but with the coolness you retain freshness. And this is something that's quite often lost with the bigger, hotter, richer styles, is we lose that freshness. Here we're about 9 kilometers in from the coast, so we do retain those sea breezes and a lot of that sort of cooler nighttime air. but we also get a lovely, lovely amount of sunshine. A little bit more precipitation down here. Again, South Africa doesn't get much rain at all, but we're likely to see a little bit more down here. We're looking at 2018 vintage of their Chardonnay. This is a wine. This is a wine which has time and time again been awarded top marks by publications like Decanter, Robert Parker, and the Wine Advocate for being an absolutely standout Chardonnay. It is one of my favourites, and certainly one which we will be doing by the glass as soon as we can reopen in the bar. Fingers crossed, late May, early June. So this is, I might get some in front of me. This is a Chardonnay that I think the ABCers out there, the anything but Chardonnays, will actually enjoy. The reason why a lot of people don't enjoy Chardonnay is because it's too big, too heavy, too rich. And that's the oak effect. That's the what we do after we've actually made the wine. Here, there is oak aging, but it's so subtle that this is all about the freshness and the vibrancy of the wine. And it's not something that naturally rolls off the tongue when you talk about Chardonnay. When you say Chardonnay, you think big and rich and heavy, but not here. The vintage itself, so 2018 vintage, was a slightly warmer, drier vintage. There was a little bit of the El Nino effect coming through, so there's a little bit of more water in the early stages of that of the vintage, but throughout harvest really dry, which gives us fantastic ripeness and concentration in the grape. These are planted with Dijon clone Chardonnays, so these are Chardonnay grape varieties or Chardonnay clones that have come from Burgundy, so really high quality of vine here. And they work in a very holistic manner. So here we're looking at working in an organic and semi-biodynamic. The actual fermentation of this wine takes place in a French oak barriques, so 228 litre barriques, which are the typical small wine barrels you see in Bordeaux, in Burgundy. And it sees 10 months of aging on that. So we've seen some aging, yes, in oak, so we'll definitely have some of the oak characters coming through, and a little bit of lees aging as well. So the lees are the dead yeast cells, so post fermentation these still sit in the wine and sit there. When it ages with lees, what you do is you get a little bit more of those secondary and tertiary flavors coming out, so a little bit more of that sort of nuttiness, a little bit more of brioche notes, that bready notes coming out, which just add to the depth and complexity. Not big, rich, creamy notes. That's oak, and that tends to be American oak. We're not looking at here. We're looking more of that sort of bready, toasty notes, buttered toasts of very fine. So the wine itself, you can see it's lovely and fresh and clear. On the nose, wow, that is brilliant. So again, loads of lemon here, loads of zippy lemon, lots of fresh tropical fruit, a little bit of sort of pineapple-y notes in there, great complexity. And then when we give it a try, straight away you've got that lovely freshness. This is about 13.5%, 13% ABV, so it's a relatively higher alcohol white wine. But you don't get any of that heat from the alcohol because of the acidity there. The freshness just balances it out. That lovely warming oakiness coming through. Oh, that is absolutely brilliant. Thomas, you've done well again there, mate. Well done. Tom Webb there from Sutherland. This is an absolute standout wine. I think this is a Chardonnay that a lot of anti-Chardonnay drinkers will actually quite enjoy, and they have done. We've served it to people who say they hate Chardonnay and they go, oh, that's lovely, what is it? Same thing with Chablis. Everyone goes, oh, I really hate Chardonnay, but I love a Chablis. Chablis is Chardonnay. So the trick with Chardonnay is just to find the style that you like. My opinion, and coming from winemaking background, working wine 22, 23 years, Chardonnay is one of my favourites. Chardonnay, Riesling, two great varieties which absolutely are standout. That's the Southern Chardonnay from Elgin in South Africa. Absolutely cracking. I'm going to finish that one. Now, moving on. The next wine you'll have tonight is wine number 2, which is this, the Renzig Inspirational Batch 3 Chenin Blanc. So Renzig are quite a cool young winemaker. They do single grape variety, which is again relatively uncommon in South Africa. A lot of South African wines are blends, very similar to. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, when you think about the most famous blends in the world, you think about the likes of Bordeaux. We maybe look at blends and go, "Ooh, it's a blended wine. It's maybe not quite as good." But actually, some of the most expensive wines in the world are blends. Think Bordeaux, absolutely. Think the Rhone Valley, Châteauneuf du Pape. They're all blends. There's nothing wrong with blend. However, here the Renzig Inspirational Batch 3 Chenin Blanc is a single vineyard, single plot Chenin Blanc. And that's important because everything that goes into this is from one single plot of land. These guys are based in Robertson. So if you think about Stellenbosch, if you find a wine map, I could probably have one here. Think about Stellenbosch, you go north and you go east of that a little bit, and we're there. So we're central South Africa now. We're hot. There's no coastal influence or very little coastal influence. So what we have here is much bigger, much richer, much riper flavour. Still great acidity. Chenin Blanc really has high acidity naturally, but we have much more of the sort of big, sweeter, riper fruit flavours. Also, quite coolly, lovely wax top on this. So these guys work organically, work biodynamically, work naturally. Naturally mean, again, like we said in previous episodes and also on the YouTube channel, naturally is when we try to do as little to the wine as possible. So we don't stir it, we don't add man-made yeast, we use indigenous yeast. We don't add any sulfur or very little sulfur when we bottle it. We try and keep the wine as possible, exactly how it was meant to be made. And we start tinkering with it, we start changing what that wine is, or we start making wine all taste the same, which is not what we want. Wine is certainly different depending on where you grow it, and this is what I love about this wine. Those of you who are maybe familiar with Chenin Blanc from the likes of Loire Valley, this is very, very, very different. Loire Valley, again, cooler climate in France, which has got freshness, it's got vibrancy. This has vibrant, but my goodness, when you smell this, you are going to get so much more. Oh, that's rich. I mean, here we're looking honey, really soft, sweet honeysuckle. There's almost a little bit of nail polish remover on there. It's quite often you get that from the fermentation in natural wine. If it's indigenous yeast, you get these really spiky flavors coming off. Here, it's just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So this does see a natural yeast, and it's aged for 10 months in both 300 litre and 500 litre neutral barriques. Now, what we mean by neutral is the oak that these go into has been used so many times that no matter what you do, the oak will not give any influence on the wine. It's just there to allow the wines to rest, to settle, and to allow oxygen in, to allow development. We're not looking for any of the oak influence in the wine. It's just about aging the wine, which you can get straight away in the nose, because you don't have it being overpowered by big, rich, spicy vanilla or any of these other big sort of oak flavors. It is about the richness of the juice. That is, it's big, it's hot, it's spicy. It's 13.5% ABV. Wow. I mean, that's us. Wow. Chenin Blanc does not get much better than that. And it's such a wonderful foil to a lot of the cheap Sauvignon Blanc that floods Chenin Blanc that floods the market every year from some of the bigger producers in South Africa. That is wonderful. That is the Renzig Inspirational Batch 3 Chenin Blanc from Robertson. They only make about 6,000 bottles a year. In fact, it states on the front, 6,010 bottles were made of this. In the scheme of things, that is nothing. Absolutely brilliant. In store, that is it's a £24 bottle of wine in the wine shop. It's not cheap, but my goodness, you get rewarded for that. Absolutely. So enjoy that, and we shall move on to the reds shortly. So, two reds, two very different styles of reds. We are looking at a sort of travelling winemaker, first of all, who buys grapes from all over the place and tries to make fantastic wines that are so typical of a place. Actually, no, they're typical of a place, but a different style from that place. So Richard Kershaw MW. So Richard, I met him a couple of times when I was importing his wines with an Austria. He started life as a chef, so he kind of came to winemaking late. Started as chef, really got into wine, and went off and did his all his WCTs, his diplomas, and actually is now a master of wine. There are not many masters of wine in the world, and my goodness, it is a very, very hard thing to get. It's got the highest fail rate of any degree in the world. Roughly about 30 a year are made or pass their course. Richard, once he got his MW, was fascinated with trying to find the right sort of clonal selection, really dry, boring subject, clonal selection that fits the right location. So he tries to find the right clone of Pinot Noir to work in this or that. Long story short, what he's done in South Africa, once he's settled, and he's worked in Chile, in France, in Australia, New Zealand, he's worked all over the world, sort of honing his skills. What he's done here is he's gone to regions which we are familiar with, and then tried to make a wine in that region that is not what we expect. And in this, we're looking at the Smugglers Boot GSM blend. Now, GSM blend is a Grenache, Syrah, and Mourvedre blend. It is typically a wine of the Southern Rhone, the Rhone Valley, and it's in the Rhone Valley in France. It's big and it's hot and it's spicy and it's rich because of the heat. So here we have 55% Grenache with 38% Mourvedre and 7% Syrah. So Grenache, Mourvedre, Syrah, more than Syrah. It is wonderfully fresh, and that's not something I ever expect to say about a GSM blend. I expect GSM blends to be big and hot and spicy and rich, as I've said before. But Richard here has created something that is just really challenges your senses. So again, he is, this is the 2016 vintage, yep. So again, we had some El Nino effect here in South Africa, so a bit more rain in the early part of the season, dried throughout the actual vintage, and hot again, which is important. So he picks by hand, he works with growers that he knows, so he sort of knows the fruit is good and healthy and organic. He makes tiny productions here. I mean, he's very particular about the yield, so he doesn't pick all the fruit, and in fact he insists on green harvesting a lot of the fruit throughout the year, which means throughout the growth cycle of the vines, he goes along, or he gets people to go along and cut off half the grapes. Why? Because the more grapes you have on a vine, the less or the lower the quality those grapes will be. The fewer grapes, the more concentrated all those grapes will be, because a vine can only pull up so much nutrients, so much water, so many minerals, and if they have to share it among many grapes, then each grape gets far less of it. So he green harvests to really reduce the yield and produce really concentrated fruit. He then ages, and excuse me for a second while. He ages in weirdly, he ages in plastic eggs. What is a plastic egg, I hear you say? Go and look it up online, because they're fascinating things, and this is a real whole change in the wine world of wine. Traditionally, you made your wine in stainless steel tanks, which is very unsexy, or you made it in lovely wood and oak vats, which really is sexy, but really expensive. And most of them are open topped, which means there's a huge amount of oxygenation. So you have to leave a cap, and you have to punch that cap down. The cap's all the skin on top. You have to punch that down to keep the extraction going. But in the world of wine now, a lot of people are working with what we call eggs, and mostly concrete eggs or ceramic eggs. But here, Richard's actually using a plastic egg, and a breathable plastic egg. Why? Because he wants a wine like the Renzig. He wants a wine to age, but he doesn't want to do it in an oak barrel, because he doesn't want any of the oak influence here. He wants a really fruit-forward, really vibrant wine. Doesn't want any of that masked by oak, but he wants the wine to actually be ready to be served when it comes to you at home. A lot of wine, when it arrives on our tables, it's not ready. It's too young. And that's why we get these kind of really high tannins, or everything's a bit out of balance. Richard is taking the risk out here by allowing the wines to breathe first. Oxygen degrades wine in a good way to start with, because it allows it to develop. So here, The wine, even though it's 2016, it's probably about equivalent to about 2012 wine because it's had extra time to develop in the egg. Then it's bottled and sent across. So, having a little taste of this, this is, wow, cherries, raspberries, lots of juicy fruit. This is Grenache Mourvèdre Syrah. This shouldn't be as juicy as this. That is wonderful. So raspberry coulis, I have to look at my notes here. Raspberry coulis, black pepper, black currant and black currant leaf. There's a little bit of some sort of herbaceousness on the back coming through there. Really sort of Demerara sugar. Fantastic. When we taste it, so Grenache, Mourvèdre and Syrah have thick skins. You get a lot of tannin. We're not getting much tannin off that at all. Why? Because of the effect. Yes, it's 2016, so it's had 5 years in bottle, but also because throughout fermentation he's added that extra level of aging through the egg and the breathable membrane to allow the tannins to soften and just become so well integrated. That is gorgeous. That is absolutely drinking so well. It's fresh, it's vibrant, it's yummy. And again, some of the food matches he's given me here. Roast leg of lamb, yes, okay. Any red wine goes to roast leg of lamb, of course. But then we're looking at sort of Gremolata and polenta, Moroccan tagines, spiced stews and casseroles. He's even put lamb korma. Now I'm having a curry tonight with the wife, so this is going to be drunk with that. That's going to be brilliant. And again, anything with a bit of sort of herbaceousness, so rosemary, peppers, these sort of things, this will go really, really well. That's the Richard Kershaw Smugglers Boot Grenache Syrah Mourvèdre. Fantastic wine. Again, around about the sort of £20 mark in shop. Real bang for buck there, definitely. But as good as that is, and it is good, I've been a bit in self-indulgent tonight because I've chosen to show last of all one of my favourite wines, not just in South Africa but in the world. I do like tasting Fridays. We are looking at this little beauty, Morgenster Estate, Lurens Valley, 2010 Bordeaux blend. So Morgenster is based in Stellenbosch. It is true wine country. The garden, the garden state. It is just fantastic. Morgenster is owned by a guy called Giulio Bertrand. Now Giulio he's quite a famous Italian chap. Made a lot of money, and he went out to South Africa to start a winery. He hired Pierre Lurton as his consultant. Now Pierre Lurton is the winemaker at Cheval Blanc. If you don't know Cheval Blanc is one of the most expensive, highly prized Bordeaux chateaux there is. So Giulio's entire idea here was to create, because the Lurens Valley and Morgenster Estate, he just saw the potential here for quality wine, and he wanted to make a wine that rivaled those in Bordeaux. And he's done it. My goodness, he has done it. This is just phenomenal. Here we are looking at a blend of Cabernet Franc, 50%, 33% Merlot, 10% Cabernet Sauvignon, and 7% Petit Verdot. Now, he ferments these all individually. So we make a vat of Cab Franc, we make a vat of Merlot, a vat of Cab Sauv, and a vat of Petit Verdot. We blend them then together in the end. Now, the Cabernet Franc and the Merlot both see a bit of malolactic fermentation, which softens the acidity, so we get a little bit more of that milky sense. And then he ages these wines in a really strict aging routine. So about only 30% of the wine sees new oak, 10% sees second fill, and then 20% sees both third, fourth, and fifth fill. Why? Because oak's important here, absolutely, but he doesn't want the oak to be the only thing we talk about. So he uses some neutral oak to allow the wines to age, as we've spoken about beforehand, and a little bit of new oak just to give a little bit of that big fiery flavour. This is really typical of a Right bank, Bordeaux. So we're talking sort of Saint-Emilion, Pomerol, this sort of level side. Not the left bank, which is the famous sort of Pauillacs, Saint Steph's, these Margaux, these areas. We're not looking at Cabernet Sauvignon. We're looking at Cabernet Franc and Merlot as the dominant blends. This is gorgeous. The other thing I will say about Morgenster is they don't release their wines until they want to. They are not pushed by the market. They're not pushed by the bank to release as soon as possible, which too many people do. They hold them back and they release them when they are ready to drink. This is a 2010 Lawrence Valley Estate Red. Okay, 2010. It's 11 years old. In our shop at Good Brothers, this is an £18 bottle of wine. The equivalent quality in Bordeaux, you'll have to remortgage most of your houses to be able to taste this sort of stuff. This is truly, and I'm bigging it up. I really am bigging it up, but it is brilliant. Here we go. On the nose straight away. I tasted this with my team yesterday as well at Good Brothers. On the nose, just look at the colour straight away. It's got a lovely sort of ruby garnet. It's got real sort of orange and onion around the rim. That's the aging of the wine. The more ages, the more the colour at the rim of the glass here becomes that orangey, not vibrant, but it becomes a bit more orange. Oh, so fantastic. Pencil shavings. It's got such intense fruit there. Again, you've got the cassis notes coming through. You've got blackcurrant. You've got cherries. Just look at my notes here because I just keep forgetting everything. We've got spice, cloves, got chives, anise. There's a little bit of butter coming in from the oak. It is on the nose. It's just. I smell that all night. I could just sit here and smell that. I don't even need to drink it. It's joy in a glass. Oh, but yes, let's try it. Fantastic tannins. Really ripe tannins. Well integrated. Great length. Intensity. Sweetness, then freshness. Builds and builds and builds. That is just... It's bonkers that you can get a wine like that for £18. It really is. That is... That's just absolutely fantastic. So South Africa is a region that we need to support in their wine world. They have had such a bad 12 months. Everyone's had a bad 12 months. We know that, but South Africa especially because of what's been inflicted on them by the government. If you can, please do go out and have a look for some quality family-owned vineyards, wines. South Africa is brilliant. I've not even touched on Ken Forrester or so Ken's a good friend of mine. Tinus Kruger at Fram. These are all doing amazing things. Owner operators who just care so much. And I'm probably going to get an irate phone call from Ken saying, "Why didn't I talk about his wines?" But his wines are brilliant, and the FMC, the flipping marvelous Chenin, to put it politely, is just out of this world. But please do enjoy the wines tonight, and enjoy your weekend. And until next time, remember, always drink better wine. Take care.